and the structures that Trump was putting in place, especially with Build Act 2018, you realize they removed OPIC, which was Overseas Private Investment Corporation, and replaced with the United States International Development Finance Corporation. And he doubled the allocation. OPIC had around $30 million. DFS has around 60, 70 million, according to the current budget.
Right.
Trump had begun what was called Africa Prosperity, or Prosperity Africa. And he had allocated, if you look at the budget numbers, what they're requesting this year, close to 75 billion for it. He has also put 77 billion on Power Africa, which was an Obama initiative. And he has continued to put money more towards where it is going to go towards trade and investment versus it going towards aid. So I think the free trade agreement, in light of the legislation that is there, the bipartisan Congress legislation that is driving Africa policy, is that the free trade agreement will most probably continue the same way, but maybe the pace may not be as fast as Trump wanted it to be, as the Biden tries to claw back on some of the things that Trump wanted to do. So it will be there, because throwing it away is a longer process, but defunding it and delaying it is an easier tactic. The same way Trump has been doing it, the Global Fund, Paris Agreement on climate, it's just, you just defund it and you try and figure out what will people do going forward.
You let it die a slow natural death.
Exactly.
Okay, we'll be talking more about the numbers right here, but even when you look at the elections, it wasn't only about economics right there as well, but also record numbers in terms of the voters turning out, but also for the first time, a female vice president. Once again, we say elect until this is done and dusted. Let's hear what Kamala Harris had to say.
55 years ago with the Voting Rights Act, and now in 2020 with a new generation of women in our country who cast their ballots and continued the fight for their fundamental right to vote and be heard. Tonight I reflect on their struggle, their determination, and the strength of their vision to see what can be unburdened by what has been. And I stand on their shoulders. And what a testament it is to Joe's character that he had the audacity to break one of the most substantial barriers that exists in our country and select a woman as his vice president. But while I may be the first woman in this office, I will not be the last. Because every little girl watching tonight sees that this is a country of possibilities. And to the children of our country, regardless of your gender, our country has sent you a clear message. Dream with ambition, lead with conviction, and see yourselves in a way that others may not, simply because they've never seen it before. But know that we will applaud you every step of the way.
Quite the speech right there, of course, by Vice President-elect Kamala Harris right there. Don't forget, this story is also covered in your copy of your People Daily, what Biden's victory means. You can get your PD straight to your phone because it's raining in Nairobi, in other parts of the country as well. You don't need to leave your house to get your vendor or your office. The number that you dial is *550 *4#. Once again, the number is *550 *4#. Let me get our doctor in. He's in Atlanta. John, we are coming at a situation where even as Biden says his most important priority right now is dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, there's also a huge line of division between American citizens. How do they, build this bridge that's being built in Kenya, bring these people together? Because really, all is not well, even within the social fabric. Where does Biden begin to mend this rift?
I think the American democratic process and the American rights are so much firm that, in my opinion, I don't think these two groups are at any one time going to come back in be together and support COVID. Because we have the current president who's already, his group that is behind him, they've already been convinced that this is being a hoax, that they don't wear a mask, and that's half of the country. And they really believe in that. And also look at the fact that majority of the folks that really rallies behind him are from the rural USA. That means most of them are not really well educated. They haven't gone beyond high school education. So really don't understand these things. So they believe what the president has told them. This thing is a hoax. So I don't think it's in one time so that these two groups, the one that believe that COVID is not a hoax, the ones that believe that COVID is a hoax, I don't think if they're going to come at one time they're going to come together and it will take a miracle for Joe Biden to bring them together. Although he say that he's going to be a president for Democrats and a president for Republicans, a president for everybody, when it comes to matters of American rights, Americans are very proud of their rights and what they believe in, and it becomes very hard to change people's worldview and mindset about so many issues in America. So it's going to be a polarized issue, and I don't think it's not going to be solved by just any time soon. It might take a miracle of prayers to convince some of these people to change their mindset.
Okay, so if Joe Biden gets in, Dr. Ari, what's your expectation of his term in office?
Well, I know the first thing from what we're hearing, the first thing he's doing actually right now is starting a task force to fight this coronavirus. And so that's the first agenda in the first few days in office. He's already started to make a task force towards that. So I expect him to continue his message of let's put on a mask, let's lock down if we have to, let's keep on social distancing, just to kill this coronavirus. So that's the only way. As a scientist, that's my view. That's what I believe in science. Despite the Republican Party not believing so much in science and to us what we're doing and what we're doing about corona. As a matter of fact, the U.S. right now pulled out from WHO. So I'm thinking the first thing Joe Biden's going to do right now is try to get back the United States in WHO, and so we can try to fight this as soon as possible.
Arnold, I'll come to you on this one as well, because as even Reginald had hinted earlier, the Democrats are very liberal and have a completely different stance when it comes to matters of abortion, when it comes to matters of gay rights as well. This is an issue that President Uhuru Kenyatta had to address before, said that this was a non-issue. Do you think this makes a return, and how does Nairobi deal with this diplomatically? Because these conversations are usually tied to the dollar. So how do you get that money but still keep, your stance on certain issues?
Well, I really think sometimes we play up these things beyond the real degree of where they are. Because as a public policy person, I really believe that it will be important that sometimes we disaggregate religiosity and state, even though it's actually very difficult sometimes to weave apart these things. But if we are going to move fundamentalism into how we think and do policy, then it becomes very difficult. Looking at where we're going, let's see how different it's been. Of course, Trump, when he came in, he did a bit of cutting about budgets around USAID and stuff. It really didn't do much. First of all, it is important to actually remember and tell everyone that Biden is actually not coming in for the world primarily. He, first of all, is voted for by Americans, and his first duty will be to take care of the American enterprise first. And then every other thing, because he's a big brother, then there are those follow-ups and other stuff that then come in. One of those things that I'm really worried about is not even about issues about the gay rights and stuff and everything around that, which is sometimes, in my opinion, overplayed, because just because other people sin differently than we do, then we really want to hype this thing and get out there. We have got as in literally, even if we were to go biblical, then the way the evangelicals and everyone else who's pushing for Trump really wants to put it out there, is that they also have got other things that people wouldn't want to talk about, like their war hawks, for example. That in itself, we have got a number of countries that have gone south because of the policies they push through. Why then is war okay, and then these others are actually looked upon as abhorrent? But then there are a few things that I think Biden will actually look at differently. This NAFTA thing, this free trade agreement thing, in itself, it has actually been threatening the East African community, as it were, because Nairobi decided to negotiate directly. And a little bit of it put the neighbors and the whole community, there were jitters. And even locally, there are a lot of people who are opposed to it. Because even as we try to directly negotiate with Washington, it must be remembered that we have got about 100 to 200 million markets just in the region. That is the easiest part of it, that even as we try to have integration within the region and ensure that Africa trades with itself, NAFTA in itself was in many ways actually going to threaten that particular aspect. And we know that there is value in Africa trading with itself. So I know, and I'm trying to think, if you look at how Biden has worked, or rather for the last 40 years he's been in politics, you realize that he's a pragmatist. He loves to walk in the middle. He is this person who's quite not on the extremes. So I'm actually thinking that he probably might redefine a little bit on how that policy then is pushed forth. But one of those things that I'm also looking at that will actually fall back is our defense agreement and how we relate. Somehow that is one part that even guys within the economy, the economists don't talk about so loudly, because somehow that is a gray area that you really don't know what is giving and what is coming. You know that for the last about 4 years, we've been trying to actually get planes from the US for our Air Force. It's not really been working. Even the newer planes we have actually come from Europe. Most of the newer gear we have for the Air Force has come from Europe, primarily Italy, yeah, most of it from Italy. But we've really been trying to have CAS planes, that is close air support planes. We're looking at the air tractors, and that deal went on the cold until now. There's been push and pull. So probably from a place where you look at it from a need value. Just, I think 2 months ago, we heard that the US was actually seeking permission to be able to launch strikes locally here within our soil. So I'd really like to see how then he picks up that, knowing clearly that he's a pragmatist. But by and large, there are a few things. You know, first of all, those guys are first Americans. And there is very little, you know, the ideology between, if you were to look at it from how you look at ideology, it's very thin between the Republicans and Democrats. Conservatism and liberalism is just a word, but how they deal with the world is almost similar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me get you in on this, Reginald, because there's also the issue of China's increasing influence in the region and in Kenya as well. Right now, Kenya's largest creditor. How does Biden speak to this particular issue? Do you think this is something that will be on his priority list? Get more American dollars in there, lose China's economic influence on this particular country, Kenya?
Not really. Just to pick up from what my colleague has said, we need to understand that the US president's policy is determined by who funded his campaign. So as much as we might say the issue of rights is overblown, but if he got most of his funding from there, they will push their agenda. When you find Obama coming to talk about gay rights during a state address, just tells you the kind of agenda they are trying to push. So it's not really being blown out. It's something that is tied to money, is tied to policy. And yes, the American president is a president for Americans first. And they will normally engage based on their own selfish interests. As much as they come out like Big Brother, you realize the US does not go where it does not benefit in any way, so to speak. Trump's policy on Africa had the last line, which was China, which was to try and push back the influence of China. China's model in Africa, especially in developing countries, is give long-term debt, which African countries are not able to access in the normal markets at very low rates. But they're very punitive in terms of interest and the covenants that are normally there, and most of the times secretive. Up to this day, we are still trying to figure out what is the SGR contract say up to now. What is the collateral that was put on that? So we're not sure of that. So that has been China's model coming into Africa. But America's model is more of we want to do it through foreign direct investment, or Trump's model. The Democrats are more aid-driven. They will give money to USAID, they'll give money to NGOs to drive their agenda. Trump wants more of US companies coming into play. So when the free trade agreement is coming into place, I support the free trade agreement depending on the policy stance that the Kenyan government takes. Right. If Kenya positions itself then, where they are saying to, was if in terms of trade directly with the US, this thing does not help us anywhere. They are bigger than us. We've got nothing to offer them. The only thing that we can offer the US, especially coming with free trade agreement, is saying, look, come and set up your factory in Kenya. Manufacture from Kenya so that we get over the rules of origin for trading in the East Africa community or trading in the Africa Free Trade Agreement. So Kenya dangles that to the US and says, right, you can actually have access to the 1 billion whatever if you set up in Kenya. Then that benefits Kenya because it creates jobs, it creates income, and starts lifting people out of poverty, which the Kenyan government has not been able to do since independence. The same thing, Kenya can use that free trade agreement with the US by telling guys in Europe and in Asia, come and set up your factory here, I will give you access to the US market. So it depends on how Kenya positions itself and creates a conducive environment, cheaper electricity, better taxation, which is more stable and doesn't change every budget cycle. So the free trade agreement is actually beneficial to Kenya if Kenya positions itself in the right way. But if we try to say, no, negotiate with East Africa, Kenya is not competitive. So if it's negotiated by East African community, the company in the US is better off setting up in Rwanda because they have cheaper electricity and better taxation. They're better off setting up in Tanzania. The cost on their port are cheaper than the cost on the ports of Nairobi. So the Kenyan government had to think here, if we go as a community, we are not benefiting anyone. Right. We are better off going by ourselves and then deal with our neighbors. Going forward and telling our neighbors, hey guys, since you're part of the East African community, we can negotiate this free trade to say anything manufactured in Uganda can still have the same access to the US if it's exported by Kenya. So there are ways of crafting this, and they're still in the negotiation stage of making it actually pleasant. And that is America's way of trying to deal with China, investing in the private sector and not directly dealing with governments. Because the US cannot compete with China in terms of building roads and bridges and stuff. They will not do that going forward. Yeah.
Okay. Dr. John, I'll have you in on this one as well, because, I mean, healthcare is definitely near and dear to you. President Trump heavily criticized on how he dealt with the COVID-19 pandemic so far. Some people are saying the bar is so low on this one. If Joe Biden gets in, he can't possibly get it wrong, dealing with this particular pandemic. What's your take on that, and what do you expect him to do matters healthcare in the United States?
I think, Jeff, it all depends on the mindset. President Trump ran on a ticket of he don't believe in science, so he had to stick towards that, to the end. Now Joe Biden is coming in; he's a believer of science. He's been in the government before, with the Obama healthcare, and he supports science. So I believe he's gonna continue what is right. As a scientist, I believe we're gonna beat this. We can beat this if we put the right measures into place. Put on masks. That's my day-to-day message. Put on masks. Keep social distances. COVID is real, and that's what Joe Biden believes right now. So, and also, I think he's going to support the healthcare sector in such a way that, for instance, I believe he's going to pull back the US and WHO. He's going to support the health sector. He's going to support Dr. Fauci, who the president right now is having a lot of commotion with because he doesn't preach the message the president wants to preach. The president wants him to preach his gospel of anti-science or anti-COVID, and that's not the right. So I believe when Joe get into office by January 20th or after January 20th, the first thing he's going to do is he's going to put us back in WHO. Hopefully, bring back Dr. Fauci and continue with Dr. Fauci's processes, because he's a very well-known virologist. So he knows what he's doing and he knows what he's talking about. So I believe he's going to put it back in office and collaborate with him to fight this COVID and continue his message. As you can see, every time Joe Biden comes on TV or in the public, he's always wearing a mask to give a message that we need masks to do this. There's also talks of continuation of lockdowns and in most States when Joe Biden comes back. So, and I think that's the only way out right now as far as, because we've tried all the other methods for the past 9 months or 8 months we have COVID and they haven't worked. And people are still out here doing what they want to do and not social distance, especially the Republican group right now. So if Joe comes into office and mandates that, and I think we might try his route and see, just because the other way of President Trump didn't work, why can't we just try something else and see? And also it comes down to what we call evidence-based processes. We have China and other world economies. They had a total shutdown. They mandated everything to social distance and lockdown, and it worked for them. China is very few cases right now of corona, even though we're hearing of a second wave. Evidence-based processes don't work. What has that elsewhere? It worked in China, it worked in Belgium, it worked in Russia. So if that worked there, I believe it can work here, since what we have in currents right now hasn't worked for us.
Okay, I want us to get on to our final round of comments very quickly. We have a minute or so to go before we wind this up. Arnold, I want your parting shot to be speaking to where we stand even as a country. Just gotten into the UN Security Council, even with a non-permanent seat. Does this have any effect on how we deal with matters at that particular level, depending on who takes this presidency in the States?
I think that in itself actually determines how we also deal with them. But as usual, regimes, we say all politics is local. So every regime has got its own way of coming through for us. I would say that as much as Trump is seen as having been a very good friend for us, especially when I've seen the issues highlighted in the PD today, talking about direct flights, that is a process that had begun way earlier. It only fell ripe during his watch. But looking at it largely, I'm looking forward to a Biden regime that is a continuation of the Obama era. It's actually Obama 2.0. But one of those things that we are really probably downplaying this particular election is that for the first time, a woman is a heartbeat away from being the leader of the free world. And at that, a daughter of immigrants, complete all of them. Even for Obama, the mother was an American. So in so many ways, it speaks to our women and our young girls and children out there that the possibility in this world of actually being anything, anywhere, really works. Okay. And, you know, like I said, the US election is the biggest import they have. So if this election, if there's anything we can take home, leave alone the Biden bit of it, is actually the Kamala Harris aspect in this particular election. Okay. And for me, it's a big score for the girl child across the world that women too can actually get to these places. Okay. And that what T.D. Jakes said this morning, that do not dream and say that the sky is the limit. When there are human footprints on the moon, there's higher places to go. Okay.
Dr. John, very quickly, 30 seconds. What's your parting shot this morning? Even as we await for this particular final decision, what's your parting shot today?
Thank you, Jeff. I believe, I think with Biden's presidency, we're going to have a lot of changes that we as immigrants, I think, we were hoping that they were going to happen to us, immigration reforms. And as a scientist, I know things like the climate deal, the Paris climate deal is going to come back into play. The Iran nuclear deal is going to come back into play. And all those other health sectors of WHO, I believe they're going to come back because we are so much excited about Joe Biden's presidency. I know he's going to bring a lot of changes, especially for scientists and immigrants.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. And finally, very quickly, Reginald, what's your parting shot? I'm sure you're still keeping a keen eye on the numbers. What's your parting shot today?
I believe a Trump presidency would be better for global economy. We need a strong American economy, and during his tenure, the American economy was stronger. He created more jobs than the Obama administration, and more jobs means more demand from the U.S. economy, means a greater aggregate demand for the U.S. economy. So I'm actually hoping that the Supreme Court will throw out some of these mail-in votes that came in, because truth be said, a Biden presidency is going to see a sort of a slowdown in the global economy, which does not work well for exporting countries like Kenya. And when the global economy is slowing down, everyone runs to the US dollar. That means the dollar strengthens. And in the position that we are in Kenya, where we have 50% of our debt as denominated in foreign currency, a strengthening dollar does not go well for us.
Okay.
And finally, on the Kamala Harris, I congratulate her, but I believe she fit the role that the Democrats needed to win the votes. She was black and she was a woman. The day we see a woman running for president by herself and garnering 70 million votes, then the girl child has actually been liberated. Right now, she just rode on the Democrats needed the black votes and the woman votes in the whatever. She was black, she was a woman, she fit the role.
Okay. That's why we leave it as far as that's concerned. Quite a discussion, and of course, as you said, still, the fat lady hasn't sung, so you wait until this is done and dusted. We shall wait. We shall wait for that.
If you know the music, we have actually gotten to the 7 already. You know 7, that climax in music.
Okay.
We got there on 7.
No.
Arnold Maleba, thank you so much for your time. Public policy analyst.
And the crediting Trump with everything is wrong.
Economic analyst as well. Thank you so much for making time this morning. Thank you so much.
Biden was the vice president during Obama's time, so he's so much experience, and everything was doing so well during Obama's time. He's going to bring that process, that continuation of, it's like a continuation of Obama. Everything was pretty awesome. Immigration, science, private.
Okay. Gentlemen, we have to leave it now. We have to leave it at that particular point. Dr. John Gitau, nuclear medicine scientist, thank you so much for making time to be on the show. Join the conversation from Atlanta, Georgia as well. Thank you so much for making time this morning. I believe it's evening where you are. Thank you so much for that as well. Don't forget, you can get yourself a copy of your PD. It's only 10 shillings straight to your phone. The number that you dial, star 550 star 4 hash. Once again, the number is star 550 star 4 hash. Short break, we're back onto the side as we get interactive. This is K24 This Morning.
President of the United States.